Multiple locations. Client server systems, their prices are per location. Right? So if you want to look at the data across multiple practices, this may or may not be you. If you want to look at data across multiple practices, you can't do that without third-party software, meaning go to my PC or something like that. You certainly can't aggregate data, meaning take data from practice A and practice B, mush it all together and see how many new patients I got across all my practices. How many, what's my retention? What's my PVA across all practices? And then drill into those metrics, those key performance indicators, which you can only access while you're at the office or remotely with Go to My PC. Our system, you can access all that information anywhere. But you can't aggregate the data and then drill into it and see which practice is performing better, compare them side to side. You might have multiple doctors in each location. You want to compare doctor to doctor across practices. None of that's possible with a client server system. Our pricing includes multiple locations. There's 24/7 access to all the data, and the data can be aggregated. We have whole organizations, franchises, which put our system in every office, and then they aggregate all of that data across all their practices and compare and contrast practice by practice and see which ones are more efficient, less efficient, which area, and they wind up changing their processes and procedures in those offices based on the comparative data analysis. Also, research is really huge for this. Technique groups like CDP are now having all their practices that purchase our system and use it, and they're using the posture rate data that gets put into our database, and they're going to be able to look at that data across all the practices that are subscribing to the CVP methods, let's say for one research project, and look at all the patient data across all those practices, independent of which practice they came from, and see how the technique or that research project is working, what were the results, etc. Network effect. This is huge. This I can't go into how valuable this is, not just for you, but for chiropractic as a whole. There's no artificial intelligence built into a client server system because there's no network. I'll get into that in a second. So, for example, your staff must find claims. This is our biggest differentiating factor. With a client server system, there's no rules built in. So a lot of your staff is wasting time just finding, for example, insurance claims. This applies to other areas too, but they're looking for the insurance claim that they have to call on. That takes them at least half the time before they even get on the phone and call on the claim, right? So it's tremendous amount of wasted time. It's inefficient, and what's worse about that is you actually don't know how much work they're supposed to find as opposed to how much they did find. With our system, since it's web-based, it's built into a database. When you log into the system, the rules are built into a centralized database. We're actually analyzing the billing data across all of our practices. We're helping build in rules that find claims for you and push them to your team. Now, you can outsource your billing to us or you can keep it in-house, but the point is the rules engine that finds those claims is leveraged across the entire network, and the more doctors that join the web-based platform, Genesis, the more data we get, the better that rules engine gets. So not only are you buying with Genesis, you're getting on a network, a web-based platform that's better just for your practice and the cost that we already explained, but it's better because it helps everybody that joins. So every time somebody joins the network, that means more claims into the system. That means the rules get better. That means your staff gets more efficient at follow-up. Or if you're outsourcing, our teams get more efficient at following up for you. So imagine this. An insurance company changes one rule. They want a certain diagnosis code in position 1, and they didn't in the past. Well, as soon as we find that rule, we build it into the system, and it says basically, if you didn't do this, it tells you right away that it didn't happen properly. It sends it back to your office, and you can see that instantly. You can correct it and resubmit it in real time. So now, what happened in that situation? Let's say we found out about that rule because of your claim. We built that rule in because we found out about that claim in your billing. Well, as soon as we build that rule in, everybody is immune to that insurance company tactic, right? So it's like a shared immunity concept where your practice gets sick for a little bit because of an insurance company tactic. We find the antidote, the antibody, if you would, we build it into the system. Everybody's immune to that. With a client server system, that doesn't happen. You have to find it on your own. You have to build a new process into your office, not into the software, because you can't do that. And you have to correct the problem. And if, assuming you do all that, nobody else knows about it. Nobody else benefits from that. So chiropractic as a whole does not benefit. So whether or not you're keeping with our system, whether or not you're doing your own billing or outsourcing it to us, everybody leverages that artificial intelligence that's being built in. There's patents that are owned based on the artificial intelligence that's built into our system. We're going to talk, I say see more with workflow on this. Workflow is the main thing that we discuss. You'll see it in other videos. Workflow, when doctors come to me, I tell them a short story and I ask them the question, and what we come to the quick conclusion of is you're probably looking for software because you think you have a software problem. The big picture of this and what you want to actually look into and learn more about is workflow, what that means, what the value of that is, how that'll save you dozens of hours in man time every month, tens of thousands of dollars throughout the life of your practice, higher retention, better patient results, more referrals, the whole 9 yards. So you want to learn more about workflow and realize that you don't have a software problem that you're trying to solve here, whether it's compliance or cash flow or retention or any of that stuff. You have a workflow problem. A little bit more about the network effect, and I mentioned this a little bit briefly earlier, but with a client-server system, you buy that server, you get that data. None of that data can be shared or viewed or aggregated or analyzed by any real research team. Certain techniques like CDP and other correction-based techniques are able to access all the data across multiple practices, and in those practices, multiple patients for research purposes. And if they want to outline a research study and have certain practices that are using our system subscribe to that, they can actually access that data and analyze it from multiple different angles and take that data and send it off to like an Emory University and publish real research based on the data. So imagine being able to use the data where in the past it may be they want to design a research study and they do that research study on multiple patients in one practice for CVP. Imagine being able to analyze the data for thousands of patients across hundreds of practices across the country that are actually doing the research in those offices. That's the difference with research. Web-based wins.